Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Faith Formation Class. I'm Wayne Young, and I am so excited to see all of your shining faces this morning, because you're hearing about a couple of topics today that I am especially excited about. So for the last number of years, well, probably 10 or so years ago, I went to the Habitat for Humanity office and I said, I'm a real estate broker, but I have no skill with a hammer whatsoever. You can ask my wife, who's sitting right there. No skill. And so I said, yeah, is there something you can find for me to do? And they said, yes, of course. Ever since then, I've been a volunteer there and have had the pleasure of getting to know David Kolosieke, who's going to be one of our two speakers today. And David came to us at Habitat from First Press, where he was there for 10 years, and was in the numbers world. He's a numbers guy. Went to school at Loyola in Chicago, but just because he's a Yankee, don't hold it against him. But he was our CFO and COO, I guess, whatever those letters stand for, at Habitat before becoming our president and CEO. So he has done a wonderful job. We've got some exciting things going on at Habitat. I was out helping with the Westminster group yesterday morning building a Habitat house. And so please welcome my friend David Kolosieke.
Thank you, Wayne. How's that? Good? Yeah. Okay. I'll move around a little bit till we get to the slides. Thank you, Wayne. Wayne is kind of follows that adage, no good deed goes unpunished. Not only did he volunteer to serve at Habitat, he was on several of our committees. He has been serving on our board for many years, and he was recently our past chairman of the board, and appreciate your service. I'm happy to be here this morning, also with Hugh, who two of us serve as leaders of two local nonprofit organizations, part of the continuum of care in terms of housing. So you'll hear a couple of different perspectives from us on where we're at and what our organizations are doing, but all of us work collaboratively together. We're part of something called the Greensboro Housing Hub. We have a partnership that was formed about 5-6 years ago to help provide seamless service. So we work collaboratively and together, and we welcome you to his new role, not only serving on the board, but now as being the CEO in addition to city council. So good job.
Being on the council, one job.
Oh, yes.
Well, for being reported.
So if I say anything appropriate, please put your hand up right away to stop me. So let me tell you a little bit about Habitat and what's going on currently. Obviously, Habitat, everyone deserves a decent place to live. And that's kind of how we look at this worldwide. Okay, that's starting. There we go. Our mission at Habitat is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes, community, and hope. At my service this morning, the gospel was about what is the greatest commandment. And it was number one, love God, and the other, love your neighbor. So one of the things that we're called to do is to do both of those things, not exclusively one and not exclusively the other. And Habitat, I'm happy to be part of a Christian organization that believes in those Christian principles and foundation, but not only our connection and our relationship to God, but also treating each other in our relationships with dignity and value. So it is nice to be part of a Christian organization that shares that dual mission. This was a nice video. We had trouble with technology getting it into play, so I'll just really give you a really short synopsis. This is a family, mom and three daughters. They were into a habitat home out of public housing. The three daughters also had multiple children between them. They have graduated college. They're successfully working, and I think two of those three are also homeowners now. So it's kind of one of the foundational principles that if you put a family early on in good, decent, stable, affordable housing, their health is better, the number of days they are at work is better, the number of days they're in school, their school performance is better. They have a greater chance of graduating from college, about 116% more likely if they come from a family where the parents own the home. That economic opportunity provides them with money to spend on other things like healthcare, food, education, transportation. So it is a great thing to be a part of Habitat lately in the last several years, where there's a great deal of recognition of how important the stability of the housing is to impacting all those other outcomes in life. And we're happy to be a part of an organization that breaks down the barriers to home ownership and provides the opportunities for families that wouldn't be able to do it through the conventional mortgage process. So what are we doing currently? There's been a lot of shifts in the market. And as you're all aware, the prices in Greensboro have gone through the roof. The wages are up from what they were, but they haven't risen to the same level that the cost of housing has risen. So one of the challenges for us as those prices have gone up is how do we keep those individuals in those lower income brackets being able to still afford the homeownership opportunity. So we've looked at changing the products that we're offering. One of the things we have currently building now are twin homes. We're doing townhomes. We've got 2, 3, and 4 unit townhomes coming up in the Willow Oaks neighborhood. And we're working on a 17-acre development that'll probably be mostly 4 unit townhomes. The opportunity with the townhomes is it lowers the price point a little bit from single family standalone. So it gives more people the opportunity. They also have HOAs with those that kind of maintain common grounds, the landscaping and the exteriors. So to some extent, it's kind of a little bit of a forced maintenance program, if you will, for keeping the beauty of the neighborhood long term. The other thing is we're very involved in partnerships with the local institutions. Guilford County Schools we've been working with for the last several years. They had a contract from Fannie Mae, and they were able to do training for the students in high school to be ready to enter careers in construction. So they had a certification program in a variety of areas. We continue to partnership with them. We're also now working with the state of North Carolina to become a employer apprentice program so that we can hire students, have them work under Habitat's umbrella with our subcontractors, not only in carpentry, but also in the electrical, HVAC, and plumbing trades, so that we can be helping prepare future workers for the industry that is so short-handed these days. So those are just some of the innovative things that we're doing. We also have 3 rehabs going on right now. So we're taking properties that have been boarded up or not been used for housing and trying to recondition them for home ownership and improving the neighborhood as well. Current communities, I think you were all out at Holtz Chapel Road, which I will call a one-off or a scattered site. But basically the neighborhoods we're in right now, Old Ashboro is just getting started. We've got about 7 homes going to be going shortly in Old Ashboro. White Oak Heights is off of Yanceyville. We were completing right now, we've got about 8 homes finishing up out of 17 in that community that we started about 4 or 5 years ago, just before the pandemic. And then the Willow Oaks neighborhood is a city public-private partnership. Investments have been going on for well over 20 years, approaching about $90 million worth of funding that has gone into that neighborhood to rebuild it. Habitat was one of the first developers approved to go back in about 3 years ago. We completed 6 homes in our first round. We've got 8 homes we're finishing up right now, and we're getting ready to start another 16, all of those being the attached townhomes. So again, the partnerships are critical for Habitat. These are an examples of some of the 2-story homes we're building. Depending on the lot, it may require a shorter home than our longer 1-story homes. So we do the 2 stories as well. I'll point out a few things as you look at that house. You see the side porch, that's not treated lumber. We no longer put treated lumber on our back porches or our side porches. Why? Because 10 or 15 years in, with our humidity here in Greensboro and the moisture that we have, that wood tends to rot rather quickly. And if you're not doing consistent and regular maintenance on it, it can become problematic in a very short period of time. So it is more expensive to make brick and concrete back porches or side porches, but it's worth the money for us to invest up front to give the homeowner a better chance of success long term. The rails on those houses are PVC product. It's a vinyl product. There's no wood materials. The columns are either aluminum or composite or vinyl. Anything that you see the white boards running between these brick and the siding, all of that is a PVC based product. It holds up to the weather, it holds up long term to the weather, and it looks good over time. So it is a more expensive home to build up front, but it gives a much longer opportunity for the family to be in quality housing. There are no openings along the brick foundation. We do not do open crawl spaces with venting. They're closed, they're insulated, they're sealed, they're conditioned. We participate in a program with the state of North Carolina through the Housing Finance Agency. It's called System Vision and Energy Star rated appliances. It goes an extra mile for us to invest in those homes with the sealed crawl spaces. But what it does is it guarantees the homeowner that their heating and cooling costs will not exceed $30 per month for the first 2 years. If their bills cost more than $30 in those first 2 years, they are able to file their bills and get a refund for that difference. So you can see that if your utility costs are limited for the heating and cooling to $30 a month, that's a significant savings of income that the family has to invest in other things. It is a reason why Habitat is doing as well as it's doing here in the community. Is all these little things that we do that are extra, a little bit more expensive up front, that we're able to do because of the sponsorship and the generosity, primarily here in the faith community, but also in the environment as well, to be able to help us cover that extra cost of building so that the family has a much more successful opportunity long term in the housing. So we can't say thank you enough to your support, not only of your time in the build, but also your financial support in building and faith. Another significant component probably added to Habitat within the last 10 years, as the major disasters happened across the country and across the world, Habitat got called on to step up and help. And their opportunity to bring people together, the partnerships, the collaborative relationships, were very impactful in addressing some of those crises. But as we got more deeper into those type of things, we also recognize that there's lots of opportunities from a legislature, from a funding, from a priority, from a zoning, from land ownership, that there were many other opportunities where the voice of Habitat could be put into play, not just Habitat by itself, but engaging our volunteers, engaging our sponsors, engaging our supporters of saying, these are important things for us as a community to be talking about, and it's important for us to communicate to our representatives and the legislative bodies what those priorities and important items are. So advocacy has become a more significant part of what we do as Habitat organizations, and trying to share information with you as we're going along through our newsletters, through our regular emails and communications to you, to apprise you of those opportunities of where our voices together can have a greater impact. So we're going to stop. We're not going to do questions. We're going to wait. Hugh's going to get introduced and do his presentation, and we'll come back for questions.
So I have the pleasure of introducing Hugh Holston, who is our next speaker. Hugh joins us today as the Chief Executive Officer with the Greensboro Housing Coalition. Some of you may know Greensboro Housing Coalition is an organization that advocates for fair, safe, healthy, and affordable housing for low to moderate income families in our community. Previously, Hugh worked in leadership positions at Old North State Medical Society, AT&T, Lincoln Financial, Wells Fargo, was Wachovia, which is actually where I met Hugh because Steve and Hugh worked together back in the Wachovia days. Hugh is a native of Fayetteville and is a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Go Heels, although last night not good, waiting for basketball season. Hugh and his wife Olympia are members at Mount Zion Baptist Church in Greensboro, and we are very fortunate to have him here today to talk to us a little bit about what the coalition is doing. So, Hugh,
Thank you. Good. Can you hear me? Well, good morning. Hello. Great. Sure. We should know. But right there, you know.
that's very impressive.
He's still building homes, isn't he? Good morning, everyone. My name is Hugh Holston. I am very, very happy to be here. I'll start off with one of my favorite scriptures, Isaiah 60:22. When the time is right, the Lord will make it happen. And I say that not because I'm here today for this time, not for my time on city council. It is for my time now with the Greensboro Housing Coalition. It's a great opportunity for me to apply my experience and my skills, attach that with the wonderful staff that we have to make a difference for affordable housing in our community. So thank you so very much for having me this morning. I'll start off with a little bit of some numbers. Some did you know? 426 to 1,000. The approximate number of homeless individuals in Greensboro and Guilford County. I'll follow that up with 208. The approximate number of homeless shelter beds in Greensboro. You see the gap. You see the challenge we have already. And I will tell you that that 208 includes the doorway project, or sometimes called the pallet homes, the 30 homes that have 2 beds. 3 of them are for our disabled. So there's about 57. Those 57 beds are in that 208. 6th, Greensboro recently ranked 6th nationally for the dollar increase in rental rates in the nation. 6th national. 7th, Greensboro recently ranked 7th in the nation for eviction rates. You see what's coming together. 48%, the percentage of households that are rent burdened. That means that they spend more than 30% of their income on housing costs. Those 5 categories together, you go from the homelessness, you talk about folks who are in apartments, but their rates have gone up. The eviction rates have gone up. And we're all, or at least 48%, almost half of the city of Greensboro is spending half of, like 30% of its income. This is your gross income. It's your net. This is your gross income on housing. That's the challenge. A little bit about the Greensboro Housing Coalition. Over 30 years ago, the Greensboro Housing Coalition grew from a grassroots collective of community members, an unofficial organization a group of folks who came together and said, we care about affordable housing, let's do something about it. And the coalition coalesced from there. And they were concerned about the state of affordable housing in Greensboro, and they wanted a better, more equitable city. And I will tell you that that collective of individuals is still active in our community, and they still care about affordable housing. But as you've known and you've felt and you've seen and you've read, that the challenge with affordable housing, attainable housing also is increasing. Back in the day when I was with Wachovia Wells Fargo, and I was working with David Levy then he was with Guilford Native American Association, and we were partnering to build homes over off of Garrett Street, off of Random Road, Garrett Street. I recall that those homes were being priced in the range of $50,000. $50,000. Now, today, David mentioned with inflation, with cost up, an affordable house is now going to run between 180 and 240. 180 and 240. Challenge being, as David mentioned, he must have read my notes, that income and salaries has not necessarily kept up with it. So looking back at those previous numbers and knowing that inflation and costs haven't kept up, it exacerbates the problem that we have with affordable, attainable housing. GHC, we have a very simple mission, at least it's simple in the writing, is that we're advocates. Advocacy, we are advocates. We're a service organization, and we advocate for fair, safe, healthy, and affordable housing for low to moderate income residents in our city and those with special needs, to help them from that continuum from homelessness to home ownership. And then once they own the home, we continue to advocate so that they can stay in that home, whether it's rental or home or they're purchasing their home. Let's meet our team. Coming on board with GHC, I realized that I've been with GHC since approximately August 7th. I think is that 3 months? It actually feels much longer than that. That's a good thing, because it means that I've been heavily engaged with what we're doing, how we're doing it. But there's one thing that I'm always going to do. I'm going to give credit to the folks who've been doing the work who've come before me. And this is the team that was there when I joined GHC as executive director, as the CEO. I was on the board, but as a good board member, you stay a little distant from the staff. You work with the leadership. You don't get heavily involved. I'm not heavily involved. And I'm so impressed with the work that they've done almost under the radar, because a lot of people don't really know what we do unless you need our services and you call in, and then you get the benefit of working with our team. So a little bit about what we do. We really have 4 major work groups within the Housing Coalition. And again, remember, we are an advocate. We don't build houses. We don't repair houses. We don't have an inventory of homes that we have at our disposal that we can hand out or provide. Look at case management. We advocate, we're a liaison, we're a connector, which makes it a little tougher because we're always working with the data to show our impact. And these are the 4 different work groups. The first one is our homeless and rental counseling. That is, if you're homeless or if you're currently renting and having some challenges, this is the team that is primarily going to work with you. I won't read through the names. Healthy homes, very exciting part about what we do. This is where we begin to look a little bit different from other folks. You know, David is building houses. We have Gene Brown at the Housing Solutions group, and they're repairing homes, and you know, the nails and the hammers and the saws and those kinds of things. Healthy Homes is an advocate. We talk about, and I'll share more about this later, but we talk more about how you can keep yourself and your family and your home healthy so you can stay in it, you want to stay in it, and that if someone is coming after you, that they'll want to stay in it and not have to have rehabbed or torn down. Foreclosure prevention. I talked about that continuum from homelessness to home ownership. This is where you're in the home, but you have a stumble here. There's some things have happened and you need some assistance to stay in your home. That's where we do that. And then community engagement, another somewhat targeted yet wide ranging, where we deal with environmental justice. We deal with the social determinants of health and how that impacts households and families and individuals and even impacts their schools. And then there's the leadership of myself and Ann Pinto as the deputy director. We have a board of directors, and hopefully you recognize some of the folks on this list. They're an awesome support. Kind of the funny thing about this is that as I looked at that list, as Melinda shared, I was previously chair of the board of directors, and I was actually involved in bringing each of them on board to the board of directors. And then on August 7th, they all became my bosses. So I certainly hope that I have treated them well along the way. But they have been extremely supportive of our efforts. Coming in from the board to the leadership role, to the day-to-day executive leadership role is a little bit different. And we have a wonderful, diverse group in experience and demographics, and extremely supportive of the work that we do with the Housing Coalition. Our roles, I mentioned them again: the homeless and rental counseling, the healthy homes, foreclosure prevention, community engagement, and then I threw that last one down there, the emergency services. And we're going to talk about each of these as we go along. The homeless and rental counseling. This is probably the primary point of entry for most folks who engage with the Greensboro Housing Coalition. How many of you all know that the housing hotline, which is published on the website of the city of Greensboro, the housing hotline, if you have a question about housing, call this number. That number is actually staffed by the Greensboro Housing Coalition. All kinds of questions come in, and the issue is that they're calls, but they're not individual calls. It's not hello, how you doing, thank you, goodbye. It's usually something is going on, and we either have that case brought in-house as case management, or we work with our partners and we will share that information. But a lot of the calls do stay within because of the different types of and the wide ranging of services that we provide. We provide shelter and housing searches. If someone is simply, they call in and say, I need a place to stay, I'm having some difficulty. We have dedicated targeted lists. We can provide them by zip code, or we even get calls from across the nation, believe it or not, of folks looking for housing searches. Somehow they've gotten our number. The housing hotline has gone national, so to speak. So calls come in all the time. But we primarily service, and we're paid to serve, the city and the residents of Greensboro. We do case management and counseling by our HUD certified staff. So once that call comes in, we realize it's something that we can potentially assist them with, then we open the case. We have an intake. And whether it's financial counseling, whether it's something with the home, whether it's a relocation, we handle that in-house with GHC. We do landlord-tenant advocacy. Remember, we're a service organization, so we're in the middle. So that tenant's having some difficulty with their landlord, with something not being repaired, something that's not right. We can step in and mediate between the landlord and the tenant. Because a lot of times, I've served on the Greensboro Board of Adjustments, and I've served on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And when you're on those commissions and you do it every day, and I see we have Commissioner Baggett here, that it becomes almost normal, not recognizing, or need to better recognize, that the person who's standing giving their case to you, it may be their first and only time that they'll ever do this, and they have no idea what to do. So it's important to have that person as an advocate, to hold their hand, to stand beside them, to walk with them. And that's what we do with the homeless and rental counseling group. Relocation assistance. And I must say here that these organizations that are, or these groups that are within GHC, they're separate, but they're also connected. And this is one classic example with the relocation assistance. It isn't something we just offer per se. It may be that someone's home is in such disrepair. Our Healthy Homes team has gone out, inspected, and found that it's just untenable. It needs to be condemned. We'll come back and we'll say to this resident, we do have some relocation assistance in partnership with the Community Foundation of Greater Greensboro. We're able to offer funding, and that funding is up to $1,500 for deposit and first month's rent. And there's a lot of activity, unfortunately, which means that we're having to move someone or help someone to relocate from one place to another because there's an untenable situations going on. But we have those resources available to us, and thank goodness to the folks at the Community Foundation for providing us funding for that. And then we do referrals. Those who are homeless, we're the primary referrer for Partnership Village, which is transitional housing for homeless. And we're very happy to serve in that role, to connect, to be the conduit. And we also, as I mentioned, those calls that come in, or even the emails, I didn't mention the emails that come in. If there's something that we cannot do, we have a loosely formed collective of organizations, from Partners in the Homeless, to GUM, to Salvation Army, to Welfare Reform Liaison, Guilford County Schools, churches, that we will connect with and see who has funding, who doesn't have funding, who can assist, who cannot assist. So we serve as that conduit. And this is all through the Homeless and Rental Council. I mentioned Healthy Homes. This is where we have a team of two. It seems like we should have many more. Maybe we will one day. But a team of two who, on a referral basis, for instance, we do referrals. We do referral inspections for the Servant Center, and also for the Salvation Army. And also we do some informal inspections for folks who call in and simply say, I have a problem, and my team, with the big heart, the passion, the caring, will go out and actually assess and do an inspection. And those inspections can be just as simple as going out and reviewing and making sure that all the appliances work, the water runs, the simple things. Or it can be a whole house, HQS, which is a whole house, overall more intensive inspection. We do remediation workshops, and we provide green cleaning kits. A green cleaning kit, those are for families who have issues with mold or with pests. We source, and then we package, and then we deliver green cleaning kits. We also do education for the families, individuals, and we do it in group settings. And here also, again, we do landlord-tenant advocacy with the Healthy Homes team. Again, service, advocacy, connecting, liaison. Foreclosure prevention, home ownership. You have the mortgage. There's something going on. We saw a lot of this during COVID when incomes were down, but costs were up. We have HUD certified staff there. They do financial literacy and budgeting workshops. Again, homeowner lender advocacy. We step in with the homeowner and work with the mortgage provider and see what we can do, modifications and extensions, those kinds of things. We connect and advocate for foreclosure prevention programs, and that is, we are continually looking, because we don't have the funds ourselves. We're connecting with whether it's a statewide program, whether it's a federal program. And then we also do workshops on foreclosure, HUD, and disaster recovery. Community engagement, a very interesting one. We just had our annual housing summit at the Greensboro Coliseum, the Terrace, and hopefully some chance to keep. And it was a very good event, very well attended. It was the first time we've ever sold it out. I'm sorry, the first time I've ever sold out the housing summit. That was just that. And but one question came up about this community engagement. I was so happy that it did because of all the work groups that we have, this is the one that some people say, well, I don't understand why you have a community engagement group with the Greensboro Housing Coalition. And through the conversation, it actually answered itself. As Bob Powell was leading a session on the questions that had come in from the registrants. And it came down to somebody said, well, you have to do this, do this, do this. We must communicate better. And that's exactly what this community engagement group does. Right now, it's fairly targeted in zip codes 27401, 05, and 06. Even more targeted to the Willow Oaks, Cottage Grove, East Side communities. But we have our director of community engagement. It used to be Josie Williams before she became the CEO before she left. Is now Tiara Brown, and she is in a sense embedded in that community. And by embedding in the community, you get a chance to really understand the issues that are going on that are going to impact housing, impact households, impact individuals. And so that group, we work with the community members, we work with policymakers and organizational partners for city level policy changes to affect and combat poor housing conditions. So we hear directly from the source. It's not us hoping somebody calls in and complains. We've actually run to the fire, and that's what this group does, and love it so much. And by doing that, we're able to acknowledge and integrate the impacts of the social determinants of health and environmental impacts. One critical piece that we're doing right now there is the Bingham Park. How many of you are familiar with the Bingham Park? The park was built some 100 years ago, but then, excuse me, it's a landfill. And then the park was built on top of it. And now, although it is not a safe place to be and it hasn't been fenced off, there's nothing going on over there. And so we're working with that community, and this community, the Cottage Grove community, was one of the main ones that helped the city and state legislators receive some $11 million for remediation efforts. We need 40 million to do it all, but 11 million is a darn good start. But this Cottage Grove community and the work from GHC, amongst other folks in the community, is really helping to turn the tide, having to be part of that, because it means that the housing is going to be saved. If the park is remediated and all the dirt is gone, and you bring new dirt in, put the park back where it was, the housing, the community is stronger and better. And that's what we're really excited about. And then we assist families with school-age children living in housing conditions that exacerbate their medical complications like asthma and the like. And we have a good partner there with Home Health, and also the North Carolina Institute of Medicine is also a good partner, and Blue Cross Blue Shield. There's so many great partners who are interested and excited about this kind of advocacy in the community. And the emergency services, these are the one-offs. These are the things that were not technically a part of what we do, but that we have happily jumped into. For instance, when it comes to the COVID-19, the emergency rental and assistance program, those were the payments that went to individuals who needed help. There's some numbers coming up there, but the Greensboro Housing Coalition was one of the primary agencies that was helping to get that money back out. You know, from my old days in banking, I could feel it happening, and not everybody was necessarily happy with the process of pushing funds out into the community, but making sure that these rental payments and these utility payments, along with other financial benefits that went to the community, help to stabilize our economic system. If these rents and these utilities weren't being paid, then potentially you have some landlords who are going to go under and have real estate problems and have mortgage problems, and it just kind of would have snowballed. So the GHC portion of this, making sure that the timeliness of those funds going out was critical. Disaster recovery, again, targeted 01, 05, 06. The 2008 F2 tornado that started around Dudley Heights and moved, this is northeast. The Greensboro Housing Coalition was heavily involved in the Cottage Grove areas. Relocation assistance, mass relocation assistance. You may have heard about the High Street mobile homes over off the Spring Garden. The Greensboro Housing Coalition was selected because of our previous experience in helping them to relocate from that site to another site. Also, the Summit Executive Center, there were some code violations there, and the Housing Coalition was there to make sure that those residents found some places to go to. And then pending, and this probably shouldn't be on here, but now that it is, it's there. We have the Cottage Gardens Apartments that's over in the same Bingham area. It was purchased some 3 years ago, and was recently sold to another owner, and there are about 196 apartments there. A lot of the folks who live there are immigrants and refugees, some of the more vulnerable populations, and we're keeping an eye on that as there may be some changes in going from one property owner to another. Are they going to be as generous in late notices or past due? Are they going to be more stringent when it comes to evictions? This is another pending one that we have our eye on. We have our community engagement person is already engaged with the new property owner, so we're staying on top of that to see how it goes and where it goes, and what we need to do and what we need to do as a community to do even better. So, having said all that, let's talk about some of these numbers.
We've got like 15 minutes.
Okay.
Try to have time for questions.
Okay,
So maybe 2 more minutes.
that's all I need. That's all I need.
Okay.
Great timing. I've never been accused of talking too much from council. Just some of the numbers. So I told you what we do. So these are some of the impacts. Those calls that we've got, over 100,000 calls that come into GHC over 3 years. The housing searches that we provided, 2,500 housing searches. The number of the dollar amount of the rent and utility payments that we processed, 5.7 million. Over 1,900 residents and households were impacted. Foreclosure prevention, we prevented over $1.7 million in mortgage loans from falling into foreclosure. Healthy homes, the 450 rental assessments, 400 ring cleaning kits, 25 families identified for remediation and healthy homes. Remember, this is case management. And then 100 pediatric asthma patients referred to us by Cone Health from their pulmonary group that we're able to have the impact. And out there. Thanks so very much.
We thought we'd take a few minutes for questions. And I'll take a moment of privilege to just say thank you so much to both of you. And maybe one of the most important questions for us is our church is very interested in making a bigger impact on affordable housing and all the things that you all talked about. And maybe just address that from your organization standpoint. How can Westminster be a part of the solution?
You've heard this. I think we've kind of covered all the points between us, but advocacy is one. So adding your voices to the voices, helping communicate policy decisions and funding decisions that can benefit across the board. Obviously, there's lots of opportunities for volunteer engagement within the organizations to help us provide these services. 3 million calls or 1,900 families. It takes an army of staff to do that. It is easier to help with volunteers. From a creative aspect, Habitat under Wayne's leadership became very aggressive in its growth opportunity to serve more families in the city. So we passed a 3-year strategic plan serving 20, 30, and next year 40 families through start of new housing for ownership. We have really scaled up Habitat so that we can be a bigger impact player in some of the solutions. So we're in a position right now, city's got some property that they're looking at perhaps developing housing. I think it was built in about 59. They talked about maybe doing some apartment rentals in there, but there's a high concentration of apartments in that area. They've talked about maybe turning it into affordable home ownership, 2-bedroom, 1-bath units. we're happy to be in a position to partner with a few other organizations. Should the city so choose to be able to convert that into senior and industry that blinds and looking for some lower cost option. And we think we can do that at a very good price point compared to rents. But I think you've heard from both of us, we're positioning our organization responsive to the growing needs here in Greensboro.
Absolutely. And in addition to what David said, I'll be very brief. Get us into the room to assist in that advocacy. If you know of someone who needs some assistance, you know of a group that can help to connect us with that. And then one more thing is funding. Coming on board, recognizing that it's not as easy as it looks. For instance, there are some funders who I've spoken with who say, well, we can fund you. Hypothetically, I can give you 1,000 widgets, but I can't give you any money for operating for the staff to handle those widgets. Those widgets may be in Tennessee. You have to go get the widgets. You have to bring them here. You have to put them together. You have to distribute them. That's all on you. If you ever have the opportunity, it's important to not only the Housing Coalition, but I'm sure to Habitat and all the other organizations I mentioned who are, in a sense, struggling financially because you have to raise money just to handle a programmatic request from one of our funders. Help us to spread the message that unrestricted, non-restricted funding isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing because organizations need to live. And we cannot necessarily live off of programmatic funding that cost us money to operate. That makes any sense at all.
And that's a huge squeeze right now for the nonprofit because so many of the foundations that fund, they want to direct it all to serving those, whatever your program needs are. And if they don't provide even a 10%, let alone a 20% overhead, as Hugh says, we have to have the bodies to make all those connections happen. And so many of the major funding organizations do not fund that operating overhead. So really good point about the unrestricted contributions are most appreciated in the organizations. You have to trust that list of board leaders that we have, that they are being good fiduciaries and good stewards of those funds operationally and organizationally.
Other questions?
You have the eviction, who governs the rules for eviction? Is that county, is that city, is it federal?
State.
State.
That there was a moratorium imposed federally, but that the rules that we follow are state rules on that.
Oh,
This may be a silly question, but why would somebody buy the Cottage Grove apartments? Why would the ownership change on that?
That's the question. And
Is that the one that turned, was the one that turned it around, right?
well,
Was it the two predecessors back? Was it?
yeah, that's the operative question. We know that I think it was a public knowledge. Is it public knowledge? Somebody tell me it's public knowledge. It's not public knowledge.
I think
There was a huge profit made in the sale, which means that somebody paid a large amount of money. And when someone puts that kind of money into it, you know that they're expecting return on investment. That return on investment is going to be driven by people paying their bills on a regular basis. And if not, then maybe moving them out and moving someone else in. It's that whole spaghetti sauce there that is the challenge that we have. I'm not mad at capitalism. I'm just looking at what the impacts of it are going to be down the road to the individuals who are living there. Again, there are vulnerable populations who, do you?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, who tend not to claim because they're afraid of the repercussions.
Complain to.
Exactly, which is why we have our TR embedded there, working with, or speaking with them. But that's the operative question. Why would they and what are they going to do with it and what's the impact going to be to our residents? Yes, ma'am.
I know you're a partnership village, for people coming out of homes. Does the city have any other buildings or places like that?
Not the city.
you're talking transitional housing?
Yeah. You mean Greensboro or the city of Green? Well,
You mean,
if
Not the city, more than likely, it would be the county if anyone had something. And I know that the county is opening up something off of Yanceville Street shortly. But it's generally the county, public health, social services. The city, I'm speaking out, I changed hats, didn't I? The city is generally not in, the cities are generally not in the housing business. It's the counties. This city has stepped in. But we don't have any facilities themselves. As a matter of fact, we're down one facility, the Salvation Army facility, the 86 beds there off of Eugene Street has been closed. It was closed last December. The word is that it probably has to be torn down because of the efforts that are there, and nothing has happened since then. So that 207 is down another 80, is down 86 because of the Salvation Army, and we need to get as many as possible because our need is so much higher.
You have time for one more question.
Yes, sir.
The question about public-private partnerships. My impression is that in Greensboro, that's fairly minimal when it comes to housing, especially when it comes to multifamily. Housing, I don't know if you've.
I would say not, there are probably a lot of projects you don't know about. So the Community Foundation has got a $35 million fund for multifamily housing. The city is involved. I think 22 or 23 of the 30 homes we're doing this year at Habitat have a relationship and a partnership with the city, whether that's through the GHDP, Planning Department 2016 bond, the 2020 bond. So there's a lot of work going on between the city and the nonprofits or the private sector. Also, the repair program in the Housing Development Department we've been through a pilot program. It's soon to be coming out. Things always take a little bit longer, but that's going to follow the model we used during the tornado, where the nonprofits basically provided all of the work to do the repairs and the rebuilds. The money came through Community Foundation and United Way, but the city was the lead coordinator of those services and setting up the structure and the process for applications. So there's probably a lot more partnerships than you're aware of, but they're probably a little bit under the surface.
Right. And the challenge behind that, exactly correct. The challenge behind that is timing. We need so much so quickly that it feels as if we're falling behind. And in a sense we are, because the rate of homelessness is up, but the construction, you go through the whole zoning planning, NIMBYism, and it takes you 18 months to get started up. But folks are sleeping in their cars right now. So it feels as if it's inadequate. And it is inadequate. There's one more thing, there's a group I shared with the city manager out of Japan. Maybe some of you have seen it, where they can put up an 18-story tower. Yeah, in one day.
Lego.
Yeah, it's just kind of a Lego. The issue is that, of course, you have to build the pods here, and then you bring them on site, and you can build that 18-story. Hurricane proof, all kinds of good things in one day. Do it fast. The thing is, if that is as good as it says it is, and it can meet all the stringent requirements around here, we need to be first in line to get our orders in. If we're going to do something like that, as opposed to sitting back thinking that,
But the building codes have to change to allow that product to be able to be used here.
right. So yeah, timing's everything.
Player.
Let's thank these wonderful leaders.
Thanks so much.